Hello and welcome to the How to Carnivore podcast. I'm your host, Simon Lewis, and you're tuning into the Plant-Free MD series with Dr. AnthonyChaffee. Dr. Chaffee is a surgeon, nutritional researcher, and former pro rugby player. He's been strict carnivore for 3 years and an on and off carnivore for more than 20. Dr. Chaffee looks and feels like a real-life superhero. If losing fat, building muscle, finding focus, and getting the most out of life is important to you, you're going to love the Plant-Free MD series.
Saturated fat is not bad for you. Saturated fat is very important for your health, as is cholesterol. It's very good for you. You know, all the studies have that had a correlation with cholesterol and heart disease have now been debunked and shown that these were not only flawed but fraudulent. You know, that these people were bought and paid for by the sugar companies. Yeah. You know, there've been copious books and letters and studies and so forth published about this. Yeah. Journal of the American Medical Association and so forth. In 2015 did a big expose on it. And there's tons of others.
Yeah, totally. I mean, from day dot, it's been hammered into us. Cholesterol is bad. Yeah. Cholesterol equals unhealthy heart equals heart attack, which is
wrong. Yeah, it's wrong. It's very wrong. And you know, cholesterol is a very vital nutrient. It's very important for your brain, the maintenance and development of your brain in particular. But you know, even after you've developed your brain, you still need to maintain it. You know, and so you know, every minute that we're awake, we get low-grade brain damage just by having your neurons firing. They get damaged, and as you have neurotransmitters, the breakdown products of your neurotransmitters actually cause harm to your neurons. It's a very bad setup, you know, and so you have to turn those neurons off in order to sort of fix the damage and also recycle those neurotransmitters so they're not continually doing damage. So this is why, you know, if you're continually stimulating your brain, you're staying awake, you're actually causing brain damage. And so, you know, if you have, like, say, you know, any sort of drug, the reason that drugs kill parts of your brain is because they hit dopamine, right? So dopamine is an excitatory molecule. It turns these neurons on, and it keeps them on, right? And so if that keeps going for a while, the neurons are going to get damaged. This is why they drop their receptors, so they're not as sensitive to the dopamine, right? This is tolerance, right? So now you need more drug to get the same response. Yep. And eventually, if you just keep forcing this and they can't turn off and they can't go to sleep and they can't regenerate, they die, right? Now you have less and less cells that get less and less response, and this is called addiction, because then you have to use the drug to just even feel normal.
Yes.
You know, to get even a baseline level of stimulation there.
So addiction is often related to those somewhat kind of artificial dopamine hits. Mm-hmm. Am I sort of on the right track there?
Oh, I mean, a lot of it, yeah. I mean, there's other things, you know, in play, but you know, a big part is dopamine. So you have someone you know, who gambles and they get a win, they get a dopamine hit, and they feel really good.
And then
you want more, and you know, cocaine obviously hits your dopamine receptors. Heroin, methamphetamines, sugar, fructose does as well.
Yep.
And so all these things stimulate dopamine and give you this hit. And you know, if you're turning these things on and keeping them on, the brain starts to die. And so same thing goes with just normal daily activity. You know, you're awake, neurons are firing, they're going to be damaged, so you have to sleep, you have to turn them off, right? So every day we get low-grade brain damage. Yep. And when we sleep, that's when your brain is healing these things for the main bulk of it, right? But your brain is made out of, you know, fat, cholesterol, and so forth. Okay, so if you're not getting enough sleep, then you know you're not going to be healing this damage. You're not going to have a chance to heal the damage. It's like getting workers to the job site, right? Yeah. If you get less than 6 hours of sleep at night, on average, you'll be 6 times more likely to get Alzheimer's. Develop Alzheimer's and dementia. Okay, there's a lot of sleep studies and experts. A gentleman from Berkeley, I forget his name, but he published on this. But if you don't get enough fat, specifically saturated fat, very long chain fatty acids, the 20 and 22 chain fatty acids, and DHA and so forth, which we don't get from plants and we really don't make ourselves in proper degrees, then you won't have the substrate to keep rebuilding your brain properly, right? So you go to sleep, you get the workers to the job site, but they can't do too much without concrete.
Yeah, okay.
You know, you're not building too many skyscrapers without the materials. So you need both, and it's a very important thing. So this is now, we have this epidemic of Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, all these sorts of things. It almost never existed. You know, people say, oh, well, people just didn't live that long. Bullshit.
Yeah,
they absolutely did. You talk to your grandparents, you ask them when they were kids, did their grandparents go into a nursing home? Did they have all these widespread nursing homes and things like that, where everyone was just getting dementia, everyone was getting sick and so forth? They'll tell you no. Maybe they knew like one person, maybe they were an alcoholic or something like that, and they ended up with problems. But it was very rare. It was very uncommon. And now, if you get to a certain age, everyone's getting this. I had a professor in medical school that said, if you live long enough, everyone's going to get Alzheimer's. It's like, maybe now, but that certainly wasn't the case. My great-grandfather was 100 years old when he died. He lived at home until his death. He was older and his body didn't work as well, but he's fully compos mentis.
I mean, how practical would it be to be in a tribe or living in a more kind of natural setting and be forgetting everything and wandering around? I mean, you'd have to, if that happened, you'd pretty much have to be put down or just like cast aside.
Yeah, and we don't really see that. We don't really see that in
stories of that happening.
No, not really. And like with the Inuits and things like that, you would say like, well, when people get sort of old enough, they would just go out and expose themselves into the snow, right? You're living in very harsh climates. Energy is very important. You can't have
I've been
dead
told
weight.
that before. So
So you don't want dead weight, right? So if someone can't sort of pull their weight, they got to go. And that's sort of them deciding like, I'm not, I'm bringing everyone down. Everyone's going to die because of me if I don't just go. And I'm sure there's probably more to it than that. But one of the things was the last thing they could do is chew leather. It's like, they can't chew their leather, right? I can't chew leather, like useless. Like one thing that they could do is they could just chew on the pelts of like the seals and so forth. And then they just sort of chew and chew and chew and chew and chew, and they would just sort of cure them and turn them into these leather materials that they could use for clothing and blankets and so forth. Well, we're not rodents, or we don't keep regrowing our teeth, right? So eventually you're going to wear those out, and you're just going to chew down your teeth into nothing, right? And then you can't chew your leather, and he's like, and you just don't have teeth anymore, and so you can't do anything. Also, you're not going to be eating too much meat at that point too.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe it has something to do with that as well, where you're just like, I can't even feed myself at this point. And so,
and then at that point, that's when they go.
That's my understanding. Yeah. And so sort of get down, but it's
something noble about that.
Very, Well, it's like that. I can't remember his name, but they were polar explorers. I think in South Pole and
Shackleton.
And and they said, I'm going out now. I may be a long time. And he just realized that he wasn't going to survive, and he was going to be taking food and resources that the other person may use to live. Very noble, one of the more noble things that one can do. And that's exactly what it is. But you don't have these stories of where they just get so gaga and out of it, and they're just dribbling and can't feed themselves, and that's not what these stories say. They say when they aren't useful to the tribe anymore to such a degree that they can't even chew leather. That's when they say, okay, I'm gonna head out. So you don't see these things, and but in the recent era, in the last 40 years or so, 50 years, everyone's been saying fat's bad, cholesterol's bad, it's going to cause heart disease. And so everyone's gone on this low-fat, heart-healthy diet, and everyone's getting Alzheimer's. Yeah, and everyone's getting Alzheimer's and so forth. I'm sure that like you say, all margarine, they're substituting these other oils that are absolutely detrimental to our health, and I'm sure those are contributory as well. But you're also not getting the basic fundamental building blocks that you need to maintain your brain.
Yeah, because every day when you're using your brain and you're stimulated, that is actually brain damage. It's sort of like neurons being turned on. At night, you rest and you recuperate and you rebuild them. But if you don't have the saturated fat, which is a key component in your brain, DHA, which I mentioned before, which is found in fish and meat.
Yeah, just meat anyway. Yeah,
meat, any sort of meat.
Butter.
Then you can't rejuvenate those neurons, and it's effectively brain damage.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and you just sort of slowly deteriorate. Your brain just slowly sort of deteriorates, and this is what we see in MRIs and things like that. You see an aging brain, they start to atrophy and it just starts shrinking down, and the gyri gets smaller, and the sulci, which is the spaces in between the folds in the brain, they get quite a lot wider, and you see this sort of shrinking, atrophying brain, and you say, oh, well, that's normal age-related changes. It's just like
maybe it's normal now.
It is, Well, it's normal in the sense that it's the norm. You don't see that, but it is the brain decaying. So that's not what you want.
No.
And when you're thinking about this from a developmental standpoint, the kid's never even going to develop the brain properly in the first place. So the brain's not going to grow and develop to its own genetic potential. So we're not talking about having freak babies, you know, we're talking about letting your child develop to its natural potential, which I don't think any parent would not want. I don't know why they would want anything else for them. You know, just letting them develop to their genetic potential.
The way they're meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. You know, just be the best that they can be. I don't know why I couldn't imagine any, you know, sane person not wanting that for their child. You know, and you see this, you know, like I mentioned with, you know, sort of vegan parents and things like that. There was 2 of them that I saw in the last year that, you know, just on their breast milk, they were, you know, their kids died from eating the breast milk, you know, nutrient deficient or, you know, those toxins and so forth in there. But, you know, there's a long way to go before a kid dies, you know, and is just underdeveloped. So, you know, when I was sort of looking at this and thinking about, you know, autism and developmental delays and things like that, you know, I asked myself, okay, so if nutrition is involved in autism, these sort of developmental issues, we should sort of see something in the literature. Okay, are vegans, vegetarians having higher rates of autism? They are. And some of these studies are showing that there's a causative nature. There's, you know, University of Texas showing that, you know, there's the carnitine deficiency. So if you don't get enough, carnitine is a very integral amino acid. It's integral for developing proper neurons in your brains, right? That's what autism is. It's a misdevelopment or an underdevelopment of your neurons in different ways for different reasons, and you have different manifestations of what we call autism. It's an autism spectrum disorder. To me, that means there's a spectrum of symptoms that to me means there's a spectrum of causes.
And one of the damage.
Yeah, and different ways that the brain is developing incorrectly from the norm that manifests in different ways. And, you know, sometimes you have to talk about mirror neurons and so forth. That's a typical sort of autism picture. So for some reason, those neurons aren't developing or aren't developing properly for whatever reason. And that's sort of what we see. So there is a type of autism that comes from not getting enough carnitine. Okay, and so if you don't, normally we make carnitine, it's considered a non-essential amino acid. However, it is essential for some people. Some people don't make enough of it, or they don't make any at all. And so they found that in these people you'll get this kind of autism, but we wouldn't see that in anywhere in medicine previously, because carnitine exists in almost all animal products, in all meats, and there's a ton of it in red meat. Okay. And so normally when we're eating red meat, we're not going to be
consuming.
Yeah, and we wouldn't see this. We wouldn't have this problem. We certainly wouldn't have a lot of it. But now we have, you know, vegetarianism, veganism. So you have a vegetarian. What's the first thing that vegetarians do? They cut out red meat. They might be pescatarian or, you know, similar. But the first thing they do is to cut out red meat, because red meat's the worst.
So no carnitine coming in.
Well, very little, right? Because there'll be carnitine in fish and chicken and milk and so forth. Yeah. But there's a ton in red meat.
Yeah.
And so if you cut out red meat and your kid doesn't make any carnitine, then the carnitine that you're getting from the other meat products aren't necessarily going to be enough. Maybe they are, but sometimes they aren't. Yeah. And then they'll get this kind of autism. And then you get vegans who take in absolutely no animal products whatsoever. And, you know, so even if they have, you know, a slight deficiency in their ability to make carnitine, they'll get this as well. And then, you know, you look at other things. Okay, you know, is sugar indicative? So, you know, there's you know, correlative sort of studies looking at, you know, autism and fructose, right? Fructose causes all sorts of biochemical, you know, metabolic diseases in your body, like type 2 diabetes and heart disease and so forth. Alzheimer's is now sort of being called by some people type 3 diabetes, right? There's similar biochemical processes in Alzheimer's as well, you know, that are similar to type 2 diabetes. And so people are saying, okay, well, you know, people like Dr. Robert Lustig are saying, okay, you know, is this because fructose is causing both? You know, I'm thinking, you know, very strong chance that there is.
Yep.
So that's doing that to an adult, mature, healthy brain. What's that doing to a developing brain? What's that doing to a fetus?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to be good.
Much more vulnerable.
You know, whether or not it causes autism, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's something that needs to be looked at. But it's not going to be a benefit, I wouldn't imagine. And so it's sort of looking at that. Okay, so we don't have studies that look at that. But what are some things? Do we have baby formula? Baby formula is generally supplied with carbohydrates and so forth.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of them have added fructose, corn syrup.
Yeah, sure thing. We just looked up the ingredients in popular baby formulas, and we saw vegetable oils was listed as the second biggest ingredient.
Yeah, like soy.
Yeah, soy as well, and carbohydrates.
Yeah, and the specific carbohydrates and so forth, they were using like corn syrup and so forth, so like high fructose corn syrup. Mm-hmm. So we know that fructose is addictive, and what's that going to do? That's going to get the baby addicted to this, and they're going to want more of it. They're going to drink more of it, and they're going to get fat and bloated. And they're going to get.
I was a really fat baby who was basically addicted to my formula. So there you go. Makes sense.
Yeah, and so this is the most important time in your life.
Yeah.
Is when you're a baby, an infant, and you're developing, growing. That's the most important time, and so that's in terms of will they like a bit of candy? Like, why would you do that? That is the last time you want this. Any sort of age restricted chemical, if there ever was one, it's sugar. You should not have that as a kid. So, but they like it. People think that a drug is only as bad as the high it gives you. That's completely wrong. Right. There are a lot of things that are toxic that don't get you high at all, like cyanide. They'll just kill you. So, just saying this like, oh well, it doesn't some big psychedelic or something like that. So obviously it can't be that bad. Well, we know for cold frozen fat biochemically that it is that bad. It gives a dopamine response to your brain, just like cocaine, heroin, and meth. We have MRI studies showing that it kills the same areas of your brain as meth to the same extent as meth, and it damages your body in the same fashion and manner and to degree as alcohol. Okay, so this is one of the worst drugs on earth, and especially when you're giving this to a kid. And so, we're looking at this, and so, okay, do we have studies looking at autism rates on breastfed versus bottle-fed? We do. And people that are breastfed have much lower rates of kids of autism, okay? Now, this particular study didn't differentiate between breast milk in the bottle and formula in the bottle, but the vast majority of people that bottle feed use formula.
Yeah.
And
at least some of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you're going to be introducing, like, I couldn't imagine that there would be any difference between breast milk from the breast and breast milk in the bottle. I don't really, maybe, but
yeah.
And but then you have people that are using formula, and formula, quite a lot of them have added fructose and other sorts of things. This is not breast milk. This is not a healthy thing.
It's interesting. A lot of these issues, it's not just it's not only that they're missing out on vital nutrients and vital, cholesterol and DHA components that they need, but it's also that they're getting this extra filler of, vegetable oils, fructose, sugar, whatever, cheap chemical can be put in there to to make more profits.
Yeah, and that's it, because most people just look at what nutrients does it have, what nutrition does it have.
Okay, so listed all the vitamins, every letter of the alphabet apparently.
Yeah, and they forget that things can be bad too, and in fact most things are bad if you think about it. Like to eat. When you look at it from an evolutionary biology standpoint, animals have evolved to eat a very specific set of things. And you go outside of that, literally the entire world is outside of that. That is all harmful to them to a degree. And we don't think about it in those terms. We just think about the nutrients, right? Well, you can get, nutrients that you need, like iron, copper, zinc, from eating dirt. That doesn't make us dirtivores, okay? Yeah. That just means that we're awesome, and that life is awesome, and that we can extract nutrients from wild things, like dirt. You have people, pregnant mothers that are very anemic, and they get, what's called pica, where they desperately eat things that are, unreasonable to eat, like soil. Wow. So there's so iron deficient that they start craving anything with iron in it. It just tastes amazing. I go back when we were talking about what I eat and how to know when you're full. I talk about taste. Things taste better when your body needs them, and then they stop tasting as good when your body doesn't. So when you start eating a steak and you're hungry, it's the best damn thing you'll ever eat in your life. And it's the best damn thing. It's really good. It's good. It's okay. It's all right. And you sort of get towards the end, and you're just like, well, I'm not really enjoying this anymore. Why? It's the same piece of meat, cooked at the same time, the same conditions. Why does it taste different here to here? That's because your body wanted the nutrients here, doesn't want them as much here. And so the same goes for dirt. So if you're so iron deprived,
you'll see
that
you'll taste a little bit that there's iron.
It's just like, oh my god, that's amazing! I have to have it. Yeah, and you will.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it'll be like, oh my god, I'm eating dirt. But that's when your body's gotten enough iron. So, it's that doesn't mean that we're supposed to eat dirt. That just means that we can get nutrients from things. And so, that's what we think. So, soy has this nutrient, that has that nutrient, this has this nutrient. Great. What else do they have?
Yeah, exactly.
There's 200,000 other chemicals in there too. What do
Yeah.
those do for you?
Yeah.
Soy in particular is nasty. It has a ton of estrogen. 3 ounces of soy has something like 20 times the amount of estrogen that the birth control pill does. Okay, we're taught in medical school not, to advise women not to eat soy during pregnancy because it can alter the development of their fetus, male or female. And we tell men you should probably avoid this too, especially when you're trying to conceive, because this is going to screw with your hormones as well. So you look at that and you have, they say, saturated fat's bad. All these fats are bad. Well, obviously you don't want this in your baby formula. So they take all those out. They put these polyunsaturated fats from vegetable oils and things like that. And they're quite harmful.